Up and About with Peekskill United was at the council meeting tonight at City Hall. It was jam-packed. The subject matter had to do with the movement of this homeless shelter from the Jam Peak House to 851 Washington Street, right off of and near Welcher Avenue. What did you think went on there tonight, Bob?
Well, I'll tell you, overwhelmingly, the crowd was against the movement of the shelter. You know, social media, there's been a petition online. I think it's like about 4-1 or 5-1 against. The mayor commissioned a poll, and I think that poll was like 61 to 39%. A lot of people were opposing it. But what came out, I think, in the meeting that troubled me a little bit is the introduction of, you hate the homeless, you people that are opposing it, you don't like our veterans, and there was a lot of that going on. And even, I have to say, the executive director of the Jam Peak House gave us a plug because she mischaracterized the topic of our show. I hope she sees it and sees exactly how we handled the subject matter. Very even. But, you know, the last I saw, the First Amendment still exists, and we have a right to have a show to talk about issues in Peekskill. But, and so I think, you know, overwhelmingly, there was a negative balance there about demonizing, and we talked about this on our show, demonizing the people that are opposing us. They have legitimate concerns about their children, their homes.
I love Peekskill, and we're all here because we all call Peekskill home. I'm proud of the work that Peekskill has done for this community and for Westchester County, especially with child. We all agree that it is an excellent program. This is something we want to support, but it doesn't have to be a burden on any neighborhood. Please work with us to find a location for it outside of not just my residential neighborhood, but all residential neighborhoods in this city. If that ultimately means moving it to a different town, I think that the Jam Peak Center has done its share of the work over the last 30 years already. Thank you for your time. Thank you to my fellow neighbors for being here, and I just also want to add that everyone wants a peaceful resolution with this.
Tonight I come to you not as a Peekskill citizen, but as a concerned parent. I have lived in Peekskill my entire life, 46 years, and purchased a house across the street from my childhood home. I did this because I have always felt safe here, and it is where I have always wanted my children to grow up and attend the same schools, feeling the same way I have, safe and secure. The corner in which my child and her friends wait for the bus is 500 feet away from the proposed site in which the homeless shelter will be placed. There will no longer be the feeling of safety and security. Not only do I worry for the children's safety, it has come to my realization that this shelter is literally placed in the backyard of my parents' home. I am not against the idea of helping the homeless and finding them a shelter in a suitable non-residential area. I just believe this location is endangering the welfare of the residents of Peekskill. Thank you.
And this whole idea about home values, we can't have home values, this gentrification is bad. You say that if you don't own a home. If you own a home, you want the value to go up. So these people are concerned. And one last thing, I won't hog all this segment. You and I walked that area during a campaign. And they talked about there's political forces against the shelter. That's a heavily Democratic area. And the reason we know it is because we had the walking list with Democrats. So it's not politics, it's how people feel in that neighborhood.
Well, I attended tonight because I am a concerned resident, like everyone else, not only for the city of Peekskill, but you know, within the neighboring community. And we just, there were a lot of mixed reviews on, you know, and ideas what people had. I think some people got the wrong message. I think the positive message is that we're here to support the homeless. I am. I was actually a U.S. Marine, so I kind of know what it is. I have a soft heart for the veterans. But there were a lot of mixed reviews as far as people who were using race cards. I'm Hispanic. The gentleman who lives across street from me, he's African American. We have, I mean, it's diversified. That, you know, and that's one thing the city of Peekskill is awesome. We have so many people here of different cultures, and I just think the wrong message is being sent. It's not that we don't support or we're not here for everybody, especially the homeless. We just think that people pick the wrong location to put the homeless shelter. And again, it's like we came here, we bought property so we can raise our children and, you know, live a better life. And I would hate for somebody to say, hey, by the way, we're going to build an airport on your street. Well, why? You know, there's so many other different places. So I think that for a community, we should all come together and find a better solution and a better location for homeless shelter. Maybe everyone who lives in the community could actually help out, give clothing that they don't use anymore, or cook or volunteer in the shelter. And I think if that happens, then we'll have a better city to live by, and that's it. I just hope it doesn't go the wrong way and people lose their minds and start arguing.
So, Louis, you were up there also, and you sat through the whole thing. And sometimes it got kind of confrontational, but it was just confrontational to a point of a loud debate. What did you think of it?
I think the people are very passionate, especially the people who live in the neighborhood. And, we can't blame them for feeling the way they do. They have the right to express themselves on the property. But we learned a lot of interesting things. One, they're not being forced to move. They still have over a year of time there on their lease. And the property can be available to them to buy. So they get enough funding and enough grants to probably buy the building. The new place they want to buy is going to need extensive repair. It's not habitable for anyone right now, and it may not be later on either. And from what I hear, some of that property belongs to some of the residents.
Mr. Liu, what you had said was that you actually own a piece of that property there?
My father, who's in the room with us, he owns the back 1/3. That property actually used to be the owner that we bought it from. It used to be all his property. Plus, there's another house adjacent to our house. So they sold that property to developers who did the Lincoln Toy and Hobby Co. And now, this is all. I've been thinking about purchasing the property for a long time. As soon as I heard it was for sale, but it was kind of insane what they were asking.
Right.
So they got to clean that stuff up because, they may not be able to do what they want to do there.
The whole real estate transaction, I don't handle real estate, but it's just like, what are you guys doing here? It seems to me like if you or I were buying it, it's our money. We'd be a little more careful with it. It seems to me they're using other people's money, specifically state grants, and even the funding for the shelter itself. They do great work, but according to their 2016 tax return, almost $1.12 million of their revenue comes from the county, the Veterans Administration, and HUD. $52,000 comes from contributions and fundraisers. So they're playing with other people's money. They do great work, but I tend to think that maybe if there was a little more skin in the game, they'd be a little more careful about this transaction.
Mr. Liu, you gave a good testimony tonight, and you made a lot of valid points. How do you feel that it went?
I think that the meeting as a whole went very well. There was a significant number of people, concerned citizens, as well as those who represented CHOP there tonight. And as you can tell, it went several hours over. So it got heated, but I also think that we traded good dialogue, and it'll allow us to open ourselves to further dialogue.
Let me just ask, it seemed like the council got a little flustered tonight in some of the questions that were posed to them, in which they really didn't have an answer, and the answers that were given just didn't make any sense, especially the one where the mayor was asked, when did you know this? And he said, 1 week ago. Now, this has been going on for quite a long time, and so...
Well, as the saying goes, you protest too much, that's what they were doing. They're protesting that they didn't know. I think we're pretty intelligent people. I think the people in Peekskill are pretty intelligent. And I don't think they bite up for 1 second. They knew what was going on. They're hip to hip with CHOPS. So if CHOPS doesn't make a decision really unless they talk to the city first. So they kind of knew. Maybe they should have gone out, and I think they asked someone to go out and find out what the neighborhood will feel about the area, having a homeless shelter there. And they didn't get a favorable response. So that kind of should have told them, let's look for somewhere else.
CHOP is acting as if this is a done deal. They have the architectural drawings on their website. Hey, come on out and watch our move. I looked at the zoning, and they mischaracterized the zoning. It's not mixed use. It's what's called general commercial. And it ain't zoned for a homeless shelter. And they're talking about a special permit use. I don't think it's a special permit use either. I think they have to get a zoning variance, which is a very, very tough thing to do. Or they have to get a text amendment to the zoning.
Well, the problem I see here is that the money they're going to spend to do the property, first of all, is exorbitant. The building is in such bad shape, and they're already showing plans where they have to cut the wall back, and the construction alone would keep people in problems just in the first couple of years before they even move any residents in.
Do you have a vested interest in the area?
I own the repair shop right next door. That's my spot. I've been there 10 years. I was 10 years up the street. I've been on this street in Washington Street for 20 years with my shop.
And how do you think the homeless shelter moving into that community would adversely affect that community?
I think that the whole stigmatism, which our governor just put out there on that debate he had with Cynthia Nixon, and he said that the homeless shelters are more violent now than they've ever been, and that people are running away from the homeless shelters to have places. They'd rather live in the streets under an overpass than in a homeless shelter. So I think that whole idea is out there throughout the country, okay, not just in Westchester. I think everybody thinks of a homeless shelter as the same thing where bad people go. And I don't think that, but the problem I have is that my customers might, and that's going to chase away my livelihood. And it's going to chase away people who want to come to the area for the other businesses.
So I do think that this is the beginning of a controversial subject that we've been touching on for a little bit of time now. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll see what happens here because this was a very interesting meeting.
One of the things that was said is if we all get together, we all talk, we can come up with a favorable solution for everyone. And that's what has to happen. I think, the transparency is really not there as much as they want to say it is. Let's all sit down.
You mean
let's
the
talk about it.
council's transparency or the...
It's a little bit of both of the council and I think a little bit of CHOPS as well.
Okay.
But I think if the community, CHOPS, the administration get together, we can find a good place that everybody will feel more comfortable with. Not only, because they didn't touch on what the people at the homeless shelter wanted. It was about everybody else except the people that actually use that facility. Yeah. And I go there, you go there, we serve the dinners there. And I don't think they want to be in a position or in a place where they're surrounded by people who really don't feel comfortable with them there, or they want to be seen by everyone there. That's just my opinion on what I see and when I'm there. So they're great people, but I don't think they want to be there themselves. And I don't think anyone's asking them as well, what are their needs.
All right. I'm Bruce Bellom, Bob Sullivan, and Louis Segarra for Up and About with Peekskill United.